Hi everyone, and welcome to another refurbishment video. I'm revisiting the Dell Optiplex 9020 micro tower, which I did a video on the full upgrade earlier on, and you can see that on my channel. So what I'm going to do is fit a better graphics card in this machine, and it's an EVGA GTX750ti super clocked, the 2 gig version. And I'll show you how to do that now. The good thing about this case is there's just the one latch there. You pull that up like that, and then the bottom left there's a small tab there that you push down and then pull that flap down like that. Now this is a 2 slot card, so I've taken out the 2 slot covers, and then all you need to do is just position that into the PCIe slot like so, and then push down till it clicks in place, and then put that flap back, and it's as easy as that. And then just put the case back together like so, and then install the drivers. So what I'll do now is get this machine started up and run a few benchmarks and games. Right, so we've installed the drivers for the card. First graphical benchmark I ran was Valley, and getting a overall score of 3290. And the next one is the Heaven benchmark, and we're getting a score of 2655. Ran both those on low quality settings. So next I'll start some games up and run some benchmarks. In some cases I didn't need the bandicam frames per second counter, as some of the games had an internal benchmark, and I ran those instead. Unfortunately, I still can't record the bandicam frames count in the top left hand corner, but when I play the game I can actually see it. It's just not shown on the videos. Okay, so I'll start. This is Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and we're just finishing off running the in-game benchmark. Now there's a lot of graphical settings you can switch on and off in the options menu, and I've got it on medium settings. Any higher graphical quality than that, it runs out of VRAM, so I've kept it medium. Switched off a few of the effects. I've kept the resolution scale at 100, so I suppose if you want even more frames per second you can nudge that down, but on average in the benchmark we're getting 50 frames per second, which is just fine. This is Battlefield 5. Now I've got it on the lowest graphical quality settings, but I haven't adjusted the resolution scale, so kept that at 100%. I've switched off 1 or 2 effects, but not all of them, and it's holding it quite nicely above 50 frames per second. So yeah, I think this game's more than playable if you can live without some of the effects. It'll definitely play any games prior to 5. But yeah, Battlefield 5 is decent enough at the moment anyway. I'm sure on later levels when there's a lot of action that frame rate dips slightly, but at the moment it's just fine. This is Far Cry 5, just running the in-game benchmarks, and we're getting on average 60 frames per second, which is quite decent. Not too many dips. I mean, the minimum is 48. I've actually got a warning on the VRAM, so you might get a few in-game stutters. I suppose you could. I don't think actually we can reduce the resolution or the quality any more than that. So it's not going to look good, but you're going to get 60 frames per second according to the benchmark. And as I say, with that VRAM limit warning, you may get some big dips now and again. Okay, so that's Far Cry 5. This is FIFA 2018. At the moment in in-game play, we're getting 60 frames per second. Now I've got the graphical quality set to medium and anti-aliasing switched off, so you have got a bit of leeway if you want to uplift those settings, but at the moment 60 frames per second is just perfect. During goal celebrations and close-ups of the keeper, for example, the frame rate does go to 30, but you can live with that. So yeah, FIFA 2018, no problem at all. And this is Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I did actually get a warning message on starting this up saying that the computer did not meet the minimum specification. At the moment we're getting 40 frames per second, but I would imagine when things start happening, and especially in built-up areas on the ground, then that frame rate's going to go down quite a bit. So it's up to you if you want to try it out on this machine. Okay, so that's actually I've also got this on lowest quality settings as well. So that's Microsoft Flight Simulator. So this is Fortnite, and on medium graphical quality settings I'm getting, at the moment without no firefights, I'm getting 60 frames per second, which is fine. So if we do get any dips, I suppose you can lower the graphical settings and some of the other things as well, because there's a lot of options in the settings menu. But yeah, no, at the moment anyway, no real problems with Fortnite. This is Clancy Wildlands, and running the in-game benchmark. Now there's quite a useful VRAM report on the graphical options, so you can adjust those to make sure you're not going over that VRAM limit. At the moment it's averaging, say, above 40 frames per second. If you want to experiment with those settings, it's quite comprehensive, just to see if you can get a few more frames per second, or maybe up the quality settings a bit. Okay, so that's Clancy Wildlands. This is Call of Duty Warzone, and at the moment with not a lot of firefighting going on, I'm getting probably on average 40 frames per second. Of course everything is on lowest graphical settings. It doesn't look too bad, to be honest. Once again, once there's a lot going on, firefighting in other words, I'm sure that those frame rates will just nudge down slightly. But yeah, if you're okay with the lowest graphical quality settings at the moment, this is more than playable. So yeah, just hovering 40 frames per second. No other characters on the screen from what I can see. But it is an outside area, which usually taxes first person shooter games. This is Need for Speed Heat. At the moment we're getting 30 frames per second, which for racing, that's pretty good. There's a few other graphical options I've kept as default, but as with all these games I've put them on the lowest quality settings. So I suppose if you can, say, nudge it up slightly, if you do want to increase the quality, that frame rate's going to go down a bit, so it's just a matter of experimenting, just see which you're most comfortable with, but it looks good to me. Okay, so that's neat. Right, so this is PUBG, and not a lot going on. We're getting 60 frames per second. Now I've got this on medium quality settings, so once the firefight starts, if that frame rate does dip, gets a bit unstable, I suppose you can always set it to lowest quality settings. But I'd say that PUBG is just fine. Right, so that's PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds. Apex Legends. Now I haven't got this on lowest graphical quality settings or resolution. It's holding up quite nicely at 60 frames per second. I'm sure it'll dip slightly once there's a lot of action going on, but for a fast-paced action game, Yep, 60 frames per second is definitely a pass. Okay, so that's Apex Legends. And this is Rage 2, I'm getting 40 frames per second. I've gone with the medium preset that the system automatically assigned me. So I suppose if that frame rate does dip, I mean 40 is acceptable, but if it does dip from that, then I can get a few of these settings down a bit. But 40 frames per second is just fine. Okay, so that's Rage 2. And this is Rocket League, and on high settings there's absolutely no problem at all with frames per second. So we're getting 60 at the moment, which is just fine. It's not a very taxing game anyway, so yeah, you can play this game on this machine on high settings and get 60 frames per second. Right, so that's Rocket League. This is Shadow and the Tomb Raider, and I'm running the in-game benchmark, and we're getting above 30 frames per second, which is just fine. This is an exploration game, so it's not that important that the frame rate's high. I suppose if you find it does dip, you can start nudging those graphical quality settings and the other settings down a bit. But at the moment, this game is looking likely as though you'll have a good experience playing it. It does dip a little bit. Right, that's Shadow of the Tomb Raider. This is Wolfenstein Youngblood, and I did actually get a VRAM limit warning on starting up this game, but in the top right hand corner the in-game frames per second counter is a reasonable 60. So I'm assuming it is actually a pass on this game. Admittedly it's indoors, there's not a lot going on at the moment, but going by what that counter says, I think we're okay. Obviously when there's firefights going on, that rate might dip. But what I'll do is I'll wait till the action gets going and report back. Right, so there's a bit more going on now, but that frame counter's still holding up okay. But if it does drop and the game's not playable, then I'll just adjust the quality settings of the graphics. But at the moment I've actually got those on low, but I'm sure there's a few other things I can tweak. So yeah, that's Wolfenstein Youngblood. Okay, so just to finish off now, after upgrading this Dell Optiplex 9020 micro tower with an EVGA GTX750ti 2GB graphics card, you'll find that it'll play a lot of most recent games on some decent settings. If you feel the need to drop down the quality to low so you can get good frames per second, then go for it. But I'd say this is quite a well-equipped machine now. Okay, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you want me to test any games on this build, just let me know. Thanks a lot.